In June, amid the golden fields, I saw a groundhog lying dead. Dead lay he, my senses shook, and mine outshot our naked frailty. There lowly in the vigorous summer, his form began its senseless change, and made my senses waver dim, seeing nature ferocious in him. Inspecting close his maggot's might and seething cauldron of his being, half with loathing, half with strange love, I poked him with an angry stick. The fever arose, became a flame, and vigor circumscribed the skies, immense energy in the sun, and through a frame a sunless trembling. My stick had done nor good nor harm. Then I sat silent in the day, watching the object as before, and kept my reverence for knowledge. Trying for control to be still, to quell the passion of the blood, until I bent down on my knees, praying for joy in the sight of decay. And so I left, and I returned, in autumn strict of eye to see, the sap gone out of the groundhog, but the bony sodden hulk remained. But the year had lost its meaning, and in intellectual chains I lost both love and loathing, mured in the wall of wisdom. Another summer took the fields again, massive and burning, full of life. But when I chanced upon the spot, there was only a little hair left. And bones bleaching in the sunlight, beautiful as architecture, I watched them like a geometer, and cut a walking stick from a birch. It has been 3 years now, and there is no sign of the groundhog. I stood there in the whirling summer, my hand capped a withered heart, and thought of China and of Greece, of Alexander in his tent, of Montaigne in his tower, of Saint Teresa in her wild lament.
If I was the author, I would read the passage with a reflective and important tone. I would talk about it if it was my own life and something worth a great value, as if I was telling an important story. The speaker of the poem The Groundhog is an individual who comes across a dead groundhog in a field. The discoverer of the groundhog's voice is being heard as they describe their encounter and emotions. An example of when they describe their emotions is when they feel they are filled with half with loathing and half with a strange love. The speaker uses I, making the point of view of the poem first person. The poem takes place over a few years from when the writer comes upon the groundhog in June the first time to autumn and 3 years later after their first encounter with the groundhog. The poem is set in a field. It is an observation of what the speaker has come across, and the context is the coming upon the groundhog and the speaker's reactions. The speaker does not specify an audience, but I believe it is for anyone, but in particular people who fear their life is on the decline. I think the author's goal and purpose was to relate his life or others' lives of greatness to a downfall of rotting matter and withered being. That as time passes, one's lives of grandeur are no longer what they once were. The author alludes to Alexander the Great and his tent, used for court in Montaigne and his profound tower. The subject is the dead groundhog that the author introduces immediately, but the other subject is old lives, which the author infers indirectly towards his in particular. The tone of the poem, the author's attitude is reflective and attached towards the groundhog, like he's attached to his own life. The author is emotional towards the groundhog as seen using words like love and his senses shook. The imagery of the maggots and the swarming of flies stirs emotion in the reader when it is said, the fever arose, becoming a flame, and vigor circumscribed the skies. Words like golden fields, nature ferocious, bony sodden hulk remained. Those are uses of diction that provide imagery and kind of develop the tone of the poem and the awful state of the groundhog and how it relates to the author's life. He uses a couple alliterations when using maggots mite and bones bleaching. He makes 3 allusions to Alexander the Great, Montaigne, and Saint Teresa. And he uses imagery when he says the fever arose becoming a flame and vigor circumscribed the skies.